Right, so I'm going to say something directly that no one else is saying. This year's flagship folding phones are not worth it. The Samsung Z Flip 6 and the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold are good phones, but they're not worth the money that they're charging. Simply put, unless what you specifically want is a folding phone and you want that big screen and money is not a concern at all, I just can't recommend that you buy one. The reason is very simple. It falls short on many basic dimensions like the camera and the battery and so many others, which is simply unacceptable for a phone that's priced at 50% higher than the flagship phones like the Pixel 9 Pro or the Samsung S24 Ultra, which are both fantastic phones. In my reviews on this channel, I aim to cut through the clutter of specifications and technical details and give you the honest views that help you make decisions. And I only talk about the insights that matter to everyday users like you and me. So today, let me tell you the 5 specific things that make these phones not worth it. And by the way, if Google or Samsung fix these 5 things by next year, they're going to make the best smartphone that money can buy. They'll end up finally making a folding phone that I can recommend. Let's get started. As always, let's start with a summary, the TLDR. First, here are your options. On the Google side of things, there's the Pixel 9 Pro, which costs $999 a pound or euros, whereas the larger 9 Pro XL costs $1,099 a pound or 1,25,000 rupees. However, the Fold this year costs $1,799 or 1,750 pounds or euros or 1,80,000 rupees. Now, on the Samsung side of things, there's the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which costs about 1,150 pounds or dollars or 125,000 rupees on Samsung's website, but you can easily find discounts for at least 100 to 200 off even right now on Amazon. Now, the Z Fold 6 price actually went up this year to almost $1,900 a pound or 1,65,000 rupees, but with an S Pen, which you should of course buy if you get this phone, and then you need a case to put the S Pen in, it easily reaches 2,000. Now, to be clear, there are some positives in these phones this year. The Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold got a great design update to the form factor, which gives you a proper Pixel 9 sized phone on the outside, which is super usable, and a massive 20:9 aspect ratio, squarish and super bright high-res screen on the inside, with much thinner bezels and a much better hinge that finally lies flat when it's open. And it has a super thin and light form factor, which is a pretty cool feat in engineering. Now for the Samsung Z Fold 6, once again, a good new design with a premium feeling matte finish on the outside. It's also less thin and tall on the outside screen, which makes it a bit more usable than last year. It has better durability with IP48 ratings, and again, it's very light. It's as light as the S24 Ultra this year. Both phones will get the same software and AI upgrades as the regular flagships without the second screen. So that's not a big differentiator, and I'm not going to go into all of the details in this review, but I have separate honest reviews on those phones on my channel in case you'd like to have a look. But as I mentioned, despite these improvements, these folding phones just don't justify the price. There are 5 reasons why not to buy this year's folding phones from Samsung and Google, and here they are. First, a noticeably subpar camera. Second, insufficient battery life to actually power 2 massive screens. Third is a surprisingly continued poor experience on the inner screen, and I'll talk about this a lot more. Fourth is the price, and fifth are some phone-specific issues for Samsung and Google, like the lack of stylus support for the Pixel and the screen dimensions on the Samsung. Now let's talk about all of these in detail. Let's start with the biggest reason, the camera. Can you believe that you're paying close to $2,000 a pound or close to 2 lakh rupees in India for last year's camera? Now here we have to talk about the Pixel first, because the Pixel phones have always had their cameras as their USP. Here's a simple comparison of the cameras on the latest Pixel 9 Pro series phones and the Fold. Pixel 9 and Pixel 9 Pros actually got a ton of great camera upgrades this year. The new 48 megapixel ultra wide has autofocus now. There's a 48 megapixel telephoto with 5x zoom. It's complemented by the already excellent 50 megapixel f1.8 lens that's been widely tested last year and voted one of the best camera lenses. It won several of MKBHD's best camera phone awards as well. Now on Unfortunately, despite being almost double the price, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold this year keeps the same camera system as last year, and it gets just a 10.8 megapixel telephoto, a 10.5 megapixel ultra wide, but a slightly wider field of view compared to last year, and then the same main lens as it had last year, which we know from the extensive testing we've done on that camera is not bad, especially in the daylight on the main lens it does okay, but it really starts to fall off when you talk about low light photography or using any of the other lenses. Let me be clear, this is not the top of the line camera from Google that they offer on the cheaper Pixel 9 Pro. Look, it's a decent camera, and if the Pixel 9 Pro Fold costs the same as the Pixel 9 Pro, I'd say, okay, it's a bit of compromise with the distance and night photography, but instead you get a tablet in your hand, so maybe it's fair. But no, this costs close to $2,000 a pound, and they call it a Pro. I'm sorry, Google, but this is simply just not a Pro phone or a Pro camera. You called it the Google Pixel, not the Google screen. Samsung Z Fold 6 has a very similar story. They pulled the same trick and kept the same camera setup on the Z Fold 6 as last year. It has the same 50 megapixel main lens, the 12 megapixel ultra wide, the 10 megapixel 3x optical zoom as last year. Once again, it does okay in the daylight with the main lens, but the difference in quality starts to become super apparent in low light, long distance, or in video mode when compared to the cheaper S24 Ultra or the Google Pixel 9 Pro. Okay, so let's talk about the second reason next, the insufficient battery. The Z Fold 6 has a 44 milliamp hour battery, which is much smaller than its competitors. For example, the Vivo Fold 3 Pro squeezes 5,300 milliamp hours in there. The OnePlus Open has more than 4,800, and before you say it, no, they aren't even thicker or heavier. Counterintuitively, all the competitors are actually thinner and lighter. The Pixel 9 Pro Fold is a bit better than the Samsung at 4,600 milliamp hours, but that's still pretty behind its competitors. By comparison, the flagship phone like an S24 Ultra has 5,000 milliamp hours. And you might think, that's not bad, it's close. Think again, because this phone has to power a second massive screen. So in this case, not only should it be comparable to the flagships, it should have much more battery than the flagships to give you a comparable experience given it has two screens. Okay, now third, let's talk about the experience on that second screen. Now I love the concept of a folding phone. In principle, it's this amazing tablet built right into your phone. You think it's like an iPad and a phone. You can watch movies on the plane, you can edit your work like documents and PPTs and PDFs on the go, you can take notes with a pen, you can use lots of apps to read articles and books and play games on this beautiful large screen. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Not so much. In reality, the squarish form factor combined with the fact that apps aren't yet optimized for this form factor make the experience pretty In fact, here, watch the tech chap tell you how he watches movies on his Z Fold 6.
Of course, the issue with a square-ish aspect ratio is that if you are watching movies, you're going to get some pretty chunky letterboxing. Actually, I find myself watching movies on the cover screen more often than not because it actually suits the almost 21:9 aspect ratio there.
Yep, he has a Galaxy Z Fold 6 with a massive inner screen, but he hates watching movies on that screen so much that he watches the movies on the tall, thin outer screen instead. Man, could there be a bigger insult to a folding phone than that no one wants to unfold it? On the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, the biggest complaint last year was that apps weren't optimized for the bigger screen in the passport-like form factor that they had last year. And while Google says that it's making more apps to take advantage of the bigger screen this year, I think I'll hold my judgment because I think it's going to take some time to sort out, especially since they keep changing the form factor each year, and also that folding phones anyway aren't such a large market. Most third-party app developers aren't going to suddenly invest time to make their apps work for this specific form factor. Oh, and by the way, if this wasn't enough, you'd think that the most obvious thing to do on this phone was to use a stylus, but inexplicably, Google's folding phones don't even support a stylus. Now, Samsung's Fold 6 does, but unlike the S24 Ultra, there's no S Pen built in. They make you pay another 50 quid for the stylus and then another 80 for the case that holds the stylus, and just so that you can make the whole thing look nice and flat and plasticky like it's 2012 when plastic phones are back again. Breathe, you can get through this video. Next is the price. I think I've said enough about this one, but remember the comparison for these devices has to be versus the flagship phones that these companies already offer that are truly phenomenal phones and so much cheaper. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is easily one of the best smartphones of the year, with a beautiful massive screen, a built-in stylus with the right aspect ratio to watch movies and use it to take notes, to mark up documents, and it's already a large screen that makes it easy to read on. This is all on top of the fact that it has an incredibly good camera setup. Similarly, the Google Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL have the latest upgrades to the much acclaimed Pixel camera setup that gets awarded every year, and they have big, beautiful, bright screens, classy industrial designs, great all-day battery life, and so much more. And all of this costs 50% of the price. And finally, there are so many smaller issues which are unique to each phone. For example, the crease is still pretty bad on the Z Fold 6 after 6 generations. And it feels like Samsung isn't even trying anymore. And it's not like we can say, oh, this tech hasn't been created. The OnePlus Open almost solved the crease issue in its first generation phone by solving how the hinge works. And also the Z Fold 6 still has a pretty unusable outer screen, which is too tall and too narrow to be self-sufficient as your phone when you don't actually want to open it up into the full tablet form, like when you're on the go, when you're at work. So you almost always have to unfold it to use it properly, which is not ideal. Who wants to always have a tablet in their hands? And by the way, it also burns a lot more battery. Now once again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these are bad phones. These are great phones with amazing tech in them and all the promise of the future of the perfect folding phone. The truth is, Samsung and Google are experimenting with different form factors, with making it thinner, making compromises, improving the technology. But as a consumer, when better phones exist at 50% of the price, it makes it that much harder to recommend a work-in-progress, overpriced, experimental phone like the Z Fold 6 or the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Now I can keep going on, but I think at this point you might actually benefit more from watching my reviews of the phones you should actually consider buying. The amazing Pixel 9 series and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which I'll link up here. If you like this video, do consider supporting me as a small creator working very hard by liking the video, subscribing to my channel, and sharing your comments below to engage with the community that we're all trying to build. Thank you for all of your love and support. See you soon.